Welcome back. Coming up on today's program, create your financial future by understanding today's trends. Imagine if you could time travel with your life and more specifically, your knowledge of money. Welcome to What's Next with Money, a program with smart insights to guide your financial decisions. Let's get started. So think about this. You're thrown back in time, say 60 years. What could you do with that knowledge? Now think money. After all, this is What's Next with Money. But how would you do that? If you think you might be missing out, don't worry. Later, I'm going to show you a simple two-step process to get a feel for the future without time travel. And if you're thinking, oh, if I went back in time, I could play the lottery. Well, legitimate lotteries weren't even invented until 1964, and the first state that did that was New Hampshire. And you'd have no way of knowing those future winning numbers. So, the question I have for you in the comments section, how would you actually profit? Let me know what you think of this kind of time travel back in time. But many of you know where I'm heading. You could invest in companies through stocks. You've gone back in time, but your knowledge of the company names that have had successful runs, their brands, the acquisitions they've made, and some that changed and even went out of business or had bad management, made perhaps poor strategic choices, and they became out of favor. But some of those stocks recovered from their strategic stumbles and came roaring back with new management or a changed strategy. Also, you will know about recessions and big events that scared some investors and markets, as well as wars, political scandals, and inflation, and that we've actually muddled through and come out on the other side in pretty good shape. So actually, a big part of our knowledge, our investing edge as we get older, we better understand free market principles. We know that we allow innovation and creativity to move forward with sensible regulation and rules of the road. Plus, there's the overhanging of the Federal Reserve and how they manage monetary policy, and our active parts of government like Congress and the administration dealing with fiscal policy, including tax policy. So American and even some international stock markets have moved through challenging times. Yes, they've taken their hits, but we have grown. There's an appetite for growth and to innovate and do better. Now, what I have just described is the wisdom of several decades of living, reading, and some study. And we talk about this in our video series called How to Invest in What You Know. And a lot of this knowledge of companies, brands, and innovation comes from your unique point of view as a consumer, worker, employee, or business owner. And in many cases, with no specialized training. So I will have a video link in the comments section below for those. And remember, you don't have to be at the inception of great companies and ideas. You saddle up alongside, observe, and do a little research, and participate in these companies that you know through investing. Here's an example from Peter Lynch, the portfolio manager of Fidelity's famous Magellan Fund. He talked about an investment in Walmart even years after its initial public offering, still could yield multiple times your initial investment many years after that IPO. Peter's point is you don't have to be early. And sometimes great companies you know about fall out of favor, or they have a marketing failure, product glitch, or an external event that puts downward pressure on stock prices. This might be the time to nibble and buy a bit in something you know well and have confidence in, but you're doing it at a discount. In addition to looking at What's Next with Money, Invest in What You Know videos, you can bend your money future into the shape you want it to be with your knowledge and your unique point of view. In just a moment, I'm going to show you 2 ways to poke at and probe the future through observation. But first, be sure to hit that subscribe and smash that like button to help others benefit from these videos. It's free and non-commercial. Here are 2 simple foresight techniques that can give you part of a process to look at future trends that support your investing goals. Now, these techniques are from an organization called the Institute for the Future in Palo Alto, California. And I'm going to have a link below to them. And I took over many days in Palo Alto a great course called Foresight Essentials. Now, these techniques I'm going to show you are not forecasts, they're not scenarios, but they're indicators and ways to note what you're seeing around you, and then think about the investment opportunities they might present. So here's the first one. It's called Signals of Change. This is really a scanning technique. A recent small or local innovation, a product or service with the potential to scale to affect markets, people, and places. These signals of change are happening now and can take existing processes in new directions and help you with your investing. So here's some examples. Crowdfunding, home delivery apps, electric cars, charging stations, home medical testing, local food sourcing, wearable technology. Now, the second one is called drivers of change. Now, these are the big trends and the underlying direction of change in technology, culture, our economy, institutions, and environment. Some examples of drivers of change include climate change, aging populations, pandemic vulnerability, mobile technology, work at home, distrust in government, transportation as a service, and lower birth rates. So let's look at drivers and signals through a weather lens. Drivers are the clouds, whereas the signals are the raindrops. Taking a health analogy, drivers are the big diseases and signals are the symptoms of those diseases. So we ask you to have some fun with drivers and signals of change in your investing pursuits. And William Gibson, a great sci-fi writer, said, "The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed yet." It's exciting to consider what you know and how could you move that knowledge through careful action to build ownership, wealth, and the opportunities to create jobs, endow organizations, and give to good causes. And of course, provide for your family, engage in creative endeavors, be of service, a good neighbor, and a community citizen. Let's look a little more into the time travel premise of this What's Next with Money episode. Create your financial future by understanding today's trends. Note, I was not talking about a trip to the future, which would be hard to profit from. Think of Ripley, the character in the Alien movie, with time travel. She is way behind her skills, finally getting back to some super base, and is not really trainable for all the new technology. Another example is the Star Trek film series and Star Trek IV, the episode with the whales, where actually a marine scientist was put forward in time with her critical ancient knowledge of how to care for whales, and that was needed in that 23rd century context. So how would you work and make a living with all the education or training you would need in the future? Instead, I've completely flipped the premise. Like Back to the Future, we go back in time instead of forward. There are many movies that throw people back in time, and a few that show the characters profiting from the advanced knowledge they have, the history they've lived or studied, and the news and technological changes they've actually witnessed. So today, my movie pick is called The Final Countdown. And in this case, the USS Nimitz, a modern-day nuclear aircraft carrier, and its crew are caught in a time travel vortex. They actually go back in time in the film to the eve of the Pearl Harbor attack that started World War II for the United States in the Hawaiian Islands area. Now, in the film, the character and their crew are back in time 40 years, and as it happens, two of the characters, a young couple, gets stranded in 1941 on a nearby island in the Hawaiian chain. But at the same time, the Nimitz later and their rest of their crew get to return to real modern day time. So imagine You're like that young couple. You're thrown back in time. You're smart, and of course, our What's Next with Money audience is super smart. You're healthy, and you're going to live a normal, long life as depicted in the film. Well, this couple, stranded in 1941, got married, and they had a 40-year knowledge edge over everyone else. They have seen and read about the future, which is really their past. So let's leave out all the fun alternative history and changing the course of history for the moment. What would they do with that 40-year knowledge edge to profit financially? I recommend stocks of great companies. Now keep in mind, ETFs, exchange-traded funds, have not been invented. There are no index funds. You can't buy the basket of the market for low cost. There are a few mutual funds. In fact, in 1940, that's when mutual fund regulation actually started. And there are just a few around, and they had very high fees. And so did stock trading. You had to pay high commissions to buy a share of stock, and probably had to buy it in large lot numbers, and then you had to pay another high commission to sell. There are no computers, and all the information are in newspapers, books, and with stockbrokers and printed reports. Financial planning hadn't been invented yet. But there was another avenue of wealth besides stock investing and buying into companies, and that's real estate investing. So anyway, the couple could have enriched themselves and likely do much good in society with philanthropy. And in the film, they turned out to be very successful. They don't tell you a lot, but you can tell they nailed a lot of these decisions. They could have changed their academic majors for a more cutting-edge field, and also carefully select a locale to live in and invest in, perhaps making a few life choices or changes. Now, for me, I wouldn't change much, but if I had been thrown back in time, I would have definitely been a more precise, trend-aware investor and giver. What I do now in philanthropy with 2 donor-advised funds and my current investing would likely be at a greater scale and certainly with a greater return. So now let's go back to the present. And with these techniques of signals and drivers of change, they can help you create your financial future by understanding today's trends. Be sure to hit that subscribe and like button, and remember, new episodes of What's Next with Money are posted on Thursdays.